We've got people from all across the country. As we continue to build a more inclusive movement, please note that there are Spanish translators to speak to our Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters. The Spanish line is area code 253-215-8782. Then you dial the meeting ID number, which is 981-0717-6817. I'm sure it will be in the chat. Muchas gracias todo. Para los que están hablando español, tenemos traducción para ustedes. Por favor, llamen la línea que va a estar en el chat. Now, if you're ready to rise up against all systems of oppression, show me, tell me, by putting your name, your gender pronoun, and where you're from, and let me know that you're ready. Are you ready to rise up against white supremacy? Are you ready to rise up against patriarchy? Are you ready to rise up for democracy? Are you ready to rise up for people over profits? Are you ready to rise up for our collective liberation? Yes, you're ready? Then say so. Tell me. Let me see it in the chat. Are you really ready for liberation and what freedom really means? Tell me. Let me see. Where are you from? I don't want y'all to be shy here. Okay? Tell me. Are you from the boogie down Bronx? Are you from Chi-Town? Are you in Arizona ready to rise up against climate change because it's just way too hot? Are you in Minnesota at the epicenter where the George Floyd protest took place? Come on now, let me know where you're at. This is an exciting time for all of us. And I really want to welcome you and thank you for being here. We're very excited to be building this movement and in particular, this national program with all of you. You're going to learn and see how you can plug in today. We do have an exciting lineup with some amazing guest speakers later in the program. As happy as I am and as excited as I am to rise up, I know that the business that we are involved in is extremely serious. Across the country, we are seeing the masses rising up. In this moment of the whirlwind, we know that to win against the forces of white supremacy, racial capitalism, and oppression, we're building up the strength of our multiracial, people-powered movement for justice, Black by Black, neighbor by neighbor. Our movement politics program is the game plan for shifting power, rooted in solidarity and driven by a collective vision for strong, thriving communities. My name is Rosemary Rivera, and I am the co-executive director of Citizen Action of New York. We work from Buffalo to the boogie down Bronx, engaging people directly impacted by the issues we work on to rise up together. With other people's action partners in New York, like Community Voices Heard and Vocal New York, we have worked statewide to elect progressive candidates, shift the balance of power in our state legislature, and enact our priorities into legislation, like expanded protections for tenants and guaranteed paid sick days. I'll be honest with you, we are scaring the hell out of the establishment and paving the way for transformational change. Over the next 3 months, we must rise up to strategically focus, kind of like a laser, focus our power to defeat Donald Trump and elect movement politics candidates up and down the ballot line. I wear this shirt, I fight evil for a living. And People's Action gave me this shirt, and I always thought that until I saw Donald Trump get into office. It really validated that. We're all in this together. And tonight, we're going to be joined by Senator Bernie Sanders. Yeah, Theo Bernie, and by Lieutenant Governor Barnes. Senator Bernie Sanders has stood for people over profit for a long time, at every twist and turn in the long history of public service that he's had, and used his leadership as a bully pulpit to help shift the narrative that's used to perpetrate systems of oppressions, basically to keep the proverbial foot on neck of the ultra rich and powerful. For those of you who are new to People's Action family, we are a national organization. We're focused on achieving a long-term agenda of racial, economic, climate, and gender justice. This work is rooted in our member organizations, grassroots programs in 35 states who work to build people power and win an economy and democracy that puts people and planet first. Since 2016, we've helped elect over 350 movement politics candidates who are champions on Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, a homes guarantee, free college, and more. So tonight, we talk about how you can get involved to rise up. If you happen to just be joining in, because it takes some longer than others, I'm going to ask you again, are you ready to rise up? Are you from the boogie down? Are you from Chi-Town? Where are you from? Put it in the chat. And if you agree with me that we need collective liberation right now in this moment, and that the moment is now and enough is enough, tell me you agree with me. Okay? So I'm going to keep us moving a little bit, but I want to also remind folks to please, those of us who are coming in to speak, we do have Spanish translators. We're going to need to slow down in order to speed up. So with that, it is my real pleasure to introduce first up the one and only Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. Now, this is a man right after my own heart. I am talking about a serious veteran community organizer whose campaign and election helped take down Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. And those of you who don't know, you're talking about Scott Walker, the guy who was really horrible on a lot of issues. He challenged us and progressives all across to reimagine what is possible. Let's push that envelope of what's possible all the way forward. He's a member of Citizen Action of Wisconsin, the local People's Action, that's the local People's Action organization, just like Citizen Action of New York. And also, this I love, the first statewide Black elected official in Wisconsin. I'm talking about a brother who is making history. I'm talking about a brother who's putting himself out there. I am ready to hear from him. If you're ready to hear from him too, let me know. Let's chat it up. Thank you so much. Come on, Lieutenant Governor Mandela. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Rosemary, especially for all the work that you're doing as co-chair of Citizen Action of New York, and also as a People's Action delegate. Again, I'm Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes from the great swing state of Wisconsin, and I'm so excited to be joining such an energized and inspired group of fellow speakers and volunteers of People's Action from all across the country. As many people know, right here in Wisconsin, we are one of a few swing states that went for Trump, which was the first time Wisconsin went red in a presidential election since 1984. Now, that may have given some people pause and say, well, maybe we should take a more moderate stance in 2018, but it was quite the opposite. We decided to lead with our values on those big issues that Rosemary talked about. And you can't blame Wisconsin completely for the disaster that's the Trump presidency, but it's equally impossible to deny Wisconsin's role in securing its victory because our state was undeniably the tipping point. had Secretary Clinton won fellow swing states, Pennsylvania and Michigan, she would have lost with Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes. So ever since these events, our state has been the focal point for winning back the presidency for Democrats, progressives, and anyone who seeks a president who has just an ounce of decency or common sense. But thankfully, so much has changed since 2016. In 2018, we proved that progressives can win in states like Wisconsin. And it takes a progressive vision to win a state like Wisconsin. And we won all of our statewide office, and we reelected Tammy Ball into the US Senate. Democrats ran against Scott Walker in 2010, 2014, and the recall election in 2012. And we lost all three of those elections. But it wasn't until 2018 where we decided to lead with our own values and not just run against Scott Walker. Everybody knows who he was. We led with our values of kindness, compassion, inclusion, and respect for all people, dignity for working people, quality public schools for all children, no matter your zip code, and a clean and safe environment for everybody to live in. And for my campaign specifically, we focused on the need for equity and sustainability. And those have remained my two core principles as lieutenant governor. I led and continue to lead with that mindset of seeing our greatest opportunities and our greatest challenges. That means looking at the terrible state of our climate and seeing it as an opportunity for us to grow and improve for future generations, creating clean energy, good paying jobs, and a safer environment through a Green New Deal, whatever that looks like for the state of Wisconsin. And we can't be afraid to talk about those big, bold ideas. We have to have a big, bold vision if we want to win, if we want to govern properly, if we want to govern for the whole. And we have to ensure that environmental justice is central for our climate work, because we know that the harshest impacts of climate crisis fall on our Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. This means being bold enough to take on the tasks that people will call impossible. And things always seem impossible until we do them. And right now, an inclusive and equitable Green New Deal is more of a question of what we need to do than a question of what we can do. And so as we talk about how to recover from COVID-19, we have to recognize that the casual thinking won't solve the complex issues like the economic, racial, and climate crises that this pandemic has further exposed. We have to think bigger, bolder, and we have to craft a recovery plan that will actually heal communities and foster a better, more just, equitable, and inclusive world. We need this bold vision in order to get people energized and to join this movement, because November, the stakes couldn't be higher. I think about my start as an organizer, just like so many of you right here, and those who are watching. So when they ask what does organizing get you, it gets you elected to statewide office. And so that's why I'm meeting with you and having these sort of events, albeit virtual, they still give me hope. And I know that we still have to have that same kind of energy while organizing digitally, as tough as it may be. We still have to be able to fire people up with our message. And that means our message can't just be focused on how bad the president is. It has to be focused on a plan. It has to be focused on our plan. It has to be focused on our vision. This is one of the most important things that we learned in 2018. To bring back decency, we have to be bold. And we're going to support progressive candidates like my fellow speakers here today and so many other People's Action candidates. And that's how we're going to get the work done. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to participate, to join you in doing this work, to join you as we rally to keep fighting for the soul of our nation. And with that being said, I'm proud to pass it back. And you're going to hear next from Lizette Chacon.
Thank you so much. Hola a todos y bienvenidos y muy buenas tardes a todos. My name is Lizette Chacon. I'm the Executive Director of Colorado People's Action, and I'm also the Board President of People's Action. I am so excited and filled with hope to know that so many of you have joined us in this critical call today. Today, we're not just focusing on what is at stake in this election. We all know there's a lot for us to lose if we don't turn out and win big this November. But we are here to talk about movement politics, the work to be business as usual politics and build towards governing power, and a complete shift that will put our communities first instead of corporate interest. I'm an immigrant from Mexico. I moved to this country when I was 12 years old. And really early on, I both noticed and experienced the difference in how some of us are treated simply because of where we come from. My family is a mixed status family, lost family members to deportation. I've seen my dad work at a meat packing plant for the last 20 years, struggle to make ends meet, and still to this day be unable to retire. He has not missed a single day of COVID started, even though we've seen an outbreak at many meat packing plants here in Colorado and across the country. And I share this because I believe that being vulnerable and honest is important, and that's what moves us into action. And also because it's one of the things that's going to help me to keep fighting. But I recently lost my godfather to COVID. I cannot help to think that if maybe there would have been a better response, that he still will be here today. And I am sure that many of you on this call and many others in our country. And so I am pissed off, angry, and I'm so upset with elected officials that continue to put the interest of corporations before people like my family and my community. And so that's why my organization, Colorado People's Action, since it started, has been working to build governing power here in Colorado. We started, we elect our own members to elected office. And to date, we've elected 5 of our members to city council, and we've helped to elect several allies under a co-governance relationship as well. Before I start talking about People's Action and the rest of the things that I want to share with y'all, I want to share, I want you all to use the chat and share your stories. And that's why I wanted to share a little bit more about myself and what's happening right now in my life. Because there's a lot at stake right now. There's a lot at stake for me. There's a lot at stake for you all. And so I want you all to use the chat to share what's at stake for you right now. And also to talk about what is movement politics and what do you want to see shift in business as usual politics. So use the chat. There's folks that are going to be looking at the chat to look at the stories that y'all are sharing. So People's Action is an organization that started with organizing in the late 1970s on the south and west sides of Chicago, where largely Black communities were sick of banks taking their deposits but not putting any of it back into Black and brown neighborhoods. We led the organizing to pass the Community Reinvestment Act that forced banks to do so. We grew to organize family farmers and rural people through Iowa CCI Action during the fight against the expansion of corporate agriculture in Iowa from the 80s to today. We've grown to public house in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York at One People's Campaign, Jane Addams Senior Caucus, and Community Voices Heard Power. We include the people who want increases in the minimum wage in Washington State, in One America, and Washington Community Action Network, Maine People's Alliance, my own organization, Colorado People's Action. We are also immigrant rights activists from Plant Action in Nevada to Michigan United. In total, we have over 1 million members in over 40 states, in 30 different states, and we are fighting to build a country and world that puts people and our planet before profits. We are here to build power with and for the multiracial working class to govern this country. As I shared earlier with my story, things are right now. But here is the thing. They have been hard for many of us for a really, really long time. It did not just start. Specifically, they've been hard for folks of color. White supremacy and the extractive profit people economy got built in this country since colonization. After the critical and important union drives from the 30s to the 70s and the increased power and victories of the civil rights, the women's, and the anti-war movements of the 60s and 70s, the reigning white corporate elite in this country got scared and decided to act. A corporate lawyer months before he nominated to the Supreme Court, wrote the Powell memo that laid out the threat that the elite were facing and demanded them to act together, to act to change the narrative in this country and to shift our economy to work for them, the rich, and to build a powerful new political infrastructure. The right has successfully executed this plan for the last 40 years. And we've lived through the last generation of standing wars, declining working power, a huge wealth gap that has given the 1% in corporate luxury while the rest of us in the multiracial working class fight for scraps. And of course, the vice of racism. Immigrant bashing, Islamophobia, and anti-Blackness.
Lizeth, I want to hold up because you are saying some really powerful things and I want our viewers to be able to hear it really well. I see the emotion and the raw passion. So I want to give it a moment so that you can ready your mic so that folks can hear you and hear you well. And in the meantime, until I am just as well interrupted, I wanted to make sure that folks understood what People's Action is doing across this country. We have three things that are really facing us right now. We have this racism, we have the economy, which is in a worse position than it's ever been, and then we have this health crisis. And we call that at People's Action the moment of the whirlwind. But as we study, as we look into the things that are really happening, I mean, I, as a Puerto Rican woman who intimately knows the streets of New York and came up with it, I definitely had to learn what oppression was. How did it start in this country? What happened to that? All of that to say that racial capitalism is what we coined it and what we termed it. Racial capitalism, for many of you who don't know, it's actually almost like picture a DNA strand, right? Where you have racism and greed kind of working together to keep, I always talk about the foot on neck. And I've talked about that before George Floyd. I should think about that, you know, because that brings up a lot of trauma for people. But fighting is the only thing that makes sense once you learn about how the systems in the world have oppressed you. Once the blinders are off, you really can't put them back on. Once you understand the bigger scheme of the elite, which have placed us in that position, you have no choice but to fight. I have no choice but to go door to door, to make phone calls, to text. It is part of my responsibility. It is our duty, right? Ashada Sakur, she talks about it. This is our duty. This is what we need to do. Since the inception of People's Action, we've had this vision of a transformative society. And we've gone through some transitions in terms of our analysis. As you see, the world is trying to even figure out how we interact with each other. What are the right words to use? What does it mean to you to say Black Lives Matters? What does it mean to you when people say abolish the police? What does it mean to you when people say defund the police? There's a lot of folks who we're trying to create meaning of the world today, create meaning and transform it so that it has an impact on people on a day-to-day basis. That's the reason that we have absolutely gotten to be a part of this. So I want to just check in with my partners to make sure that Lizeth has gotten her, yep, okay, I think we're ready for Lizeth, who is amazing and wonderful. Lizeth.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. Hope folks can hear me okay now. And I'm just gonna go back to introduce People's Action because I think it's critical to mention the power that People's Action has built throughout the nation and throughout the country and the work that's important. So I wanna make sure that folks are clear on that. So yeah, People's Action is an organization that started in the late 1970s on the south and west sides of Chicago, where largely Black communities were sick of banks taking their deposits, but not putting any of it back into Black and brown neighborhoods. We led the organizing to pass the Community Reinvestment Act that forced banks to do so. We grew to organize family farmers and rural people through Iowa CCI Action during the fight against the expansion of corporate agriculture in Iowa from the 80s to today. We've grown to be public housing residents in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, One People's Campaign, Jane Addams Senior Caucus, and Community Voices Heard Power. We include the people who won big increases in minimum wage increases in Washington State with One America and Washington Community Action Network, as well as Maine People's Alliance and my own organization, Colorado People's Action. We are immigrant rights activists from Plan Action in Nevada to Michigan United. In total, we have over 1 million members in over 40 state member organizations in 30 different states across the country. And we are fighting to build a country and world that puts people and our planet before profits. We are here to build power with and for the and as I shared earlier with my story, they are really, really rough.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lizette. There seems to be a lot of technical difficulties. If you can chat to me where you are, I think I can pick it up from there. Just let me know where you are. I know what you were trying to get across to the people right now. I think it's probably best for us to move forward. I'd like to reintroduce instead Elaine Farhat from Minnesota, from Take Action Minnesota. She's a young, dynamic person. I'd like to see if Elaine would join us at this point. Are you ready? Sorry, folks, for any technical difficulties. And yes, there you are.
Here I am. Thank you, Rosemary. Lizette, thank you for sharing your beautiful and moving story. It was really powerful and definitely got through. And I'm proud to be on this call with you. My name's Eliane Farhat. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the executive director at Take Action Minnesota and on the People's Action Board, and very proud to be here with all of you and honored to be with all of you tonight as well. At Take Action Minnesota, we're building governing power. That means we're not just focused on winning everything, but we're focused on running everything. That looks like taking political risks and standing with our people when they run for office. When Ilhan Omar first decided to run for public office to be a state rep in Minnesota, she challenged a 40-year incumbent. When she did that, we had her back. And we were one of the only organizations in the state to endorse her. Now, as you all know, she's in Congress advancing our agenda. She worked hand in hand with the People's Action Network to draft and introduce our homes guarantee legislation, listening to the voices of renters and people who have been evicted, not landlords and greedy developers. When we run things, the world we dream of is ours to make real. It's how we transform our nation and our globe into places where we're all free and living lives full of joy. From the uprisings demanding justice for George Floyd to Native folks blocking Trump from speaking at Mount Rushmore, we are coming together to care for each other, to defend Black lives, and to demand we reopen better than before. We, the people, are making the path to a new world that is worthy of our dreams. Together, we are building people power in the streets, in our communities, and in public office, acting in deep solidarity across race, class, gender, and geography. One essential stop on that path, as we all know and why we're here tonight, is Election Day 2020. In Minnesota, we're going to beat Donald Trump, who nearly won here in 2016, send Congresswoman Ilhan Omar back to DC, and flip the Minnesota Senate so Democrats have the House, Senate, and governor's office, and we can move a bold agenda in the state and in DC. This year, I'm so excited that we have movement candidates running up and down the ballot, people who we have been building with and governing with for years. Up next is Council Member, Chair of the Minnesota Bernie Sanders National Delegation, and Take Action Minnesota member, Nelsie Yang, to share a bit more about what it looks like to be a movement candidate in Minnesota and what's at stake in our state this year.
Thanks so much, Eliane, and thank you to all of you for being here. I want folks to know that organizing is the key to winning, but it's really going to take courage to do this work. And I know it because I lived it over and over again. It's how someone like me, a Hmong daughter of refugees, a 24-year-old renter, a Take Action member, and former staff member got elected to the St. Paul City Council in 2019. This was despite being told, one, I'm too young and not as experienced as 5 other candidates who were twice my age and twice my resume. 2, only being a renter and not as invested as homeowners. And 3, being too radical for pushing for corporate accountability and housing as a human right. I'm here because we won in Minnesota. And like what Eliane said, though, winning isn't the end goal. We need to run everything. Even though I'm in elected office, I don't act alone or make decisions alone. That's why my team and I are now back at the organizing table strategizing about how we will work with our state's people's organizations, fundraising tens of thousands of dollars to hire organizers and to organize people to support Medicare for all, Green New Deal, free college for all, and abolishing the police to reallocate funding towards services programs rooted in care, anti-racism, and social equity. Our story here in Minnesota is the story of what's happening in your state. We continue to organize because we know we deserve more than the status quo. Now, imagine our power coordinated and aligned all across the nation to shift the course of this country. What's amazing is that we actually have a chance to make that happen right now by securing wins all across the country in this year's election. I know I'm pumped and ready to make that happen. And if you are too, I ask you to join me in making this vision a reality because there is no one to save us but us. So we need to go out there and win our primaries by having powerful conversations with folks far and near, over the phone, at the door, and through text messages about our deepest hopes and dreams. Thanks, everyone, and keep on organizing. I'm going to pass the mic over to Joanna Bouch, Movement Politics Director at Citizen Action Wisconsin and candidate for State Assembly in the South Side of Milwaukee.
Thank you so much. What's up, People's Action? I am so excited to share space with y'all, and I cannot wait until we can be together again. This year has been a whirlwind, and we aren't done yet. You know, the people have spoken, but we still have so much more to say. I am from Wisconsin, where we will decide the direction and future for our country. For too long, politicians have been telling us the way to win elections is by talking about minor poll-tested reforms and running candidates who are rich, straight, white men. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's bull. People in Wisconsin are in crisis after nearly a decade of unfettered racism, attacks on unions, and the multiracial working class from GOP and former Governor Scott Walker. Boo! The people in Wisconsin are tired of being sick and tired. We want new, bold leaders and transformational ideas. At Citizen Action, we are working hard to make this happen with our members, our partners, and volunteers just like all of you all. Like Lisette was saying, or was trying to tell you all, you know, we're one of the states that are using the deep canvas methodology to talk to voters. We are having deep, in-depth conversations about what is going on in our communities and what we need to move forward. And let me tell you, this deep canvassing is working, okay? We are having conversations from people from Green Bay to La Crosse and moving them to support our movement candidates. This past spring, through our movement politics program, 29 of our members were elected to local government across the state of Wisconsin. And for our upcoming August primary election, August 11th, it's right around the corner next week, we are working with 38 movement politic candidates at the state level. And I am proud and honored to say that I am one of them. Check out the sign. I come from a working class union family. I am a queer Latina woman from the south side of Milwaukee, and I am running for state assembly to put people first and to bring back power to our communities. But listen, none of us can do this alone. So let's take these next 90 days and beyond and transform our political system. Volunteer to get movement politics candidates in office today. Thank you all so much. Sí se puede y juntas podemos. Next, I would just like to pass it on to Ricardo Zamudo Guillan, Organizing Director at Lucha and People's Action member. Thanks, y'all.
Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. Ricardo Zamudio. I'm really excited to be here with you all the way from Arizona, a battleground state. And not because we just woke up one day and it was one of those states. It was because of the last decade of power building and organizing that we've taken on out of the ashes of hateful laws like SB 1070, the Show Me Your Papers law. We have lifted up with the mission to make sure that those that were directly targeted were part of the decision-making process, that the new American majority was uplifted, and that we fought for the reality we want and we need in our communities. So those directly impacted rolled up their sleeves. We've had millions of conversation in 110 plus degree heat, just to start out and create and uplift our people's first agenda, an agenda that centers workers, families, immigrants, women, children, and the dignity and respect for all. With this at the heart of our Arizona movement, we have fought to defend our communities from racist and hateful laws and politicians. We've also fought for the love of our people and seeing their well-being rise. And so because we battled from the direct actions of stopping buses coming out of ICE offices to the ballot box and all in between, we know what this moment means for our movement, for our families, for our barrios, for our communities. We're in a very important moment, a pivotal moment, where Arizona doesn't just see the opportunity to be a battleground state and defeat Donald Trump and white supremacy, but also to set the stage for the next 10 years of progress in our communities. And we see this in 2016, we saw this in 2018, how our work was flourishing into something beautiful, where we began electing our own and defeating those that we thought that were untouchable, like the very author of 1070, Senator President Russell Pierce, and Sheriff Arpaio. So we began opening up space for our people to take those seats and bring voices of our community along. More of our own will now own these microphones and these spaces where decisions are made. And over the next 10 years, our power will be more in spaces statewide, federal, and the presidency. And so like Raquel Teran, who's here with us, knows and understands the organizing of our community, understands firsthand what it is to take our community's voice inside the power chambers and uplift our voices as a movement candidate. So I'll pass it over to Raquel to share some words.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today. And that's correct. We've gone from the outside to the inside. We've traded megaphones to microphones. We're using our people power to push our people's first agenda and defend it. Groups like Lucha, along with many community partners, have been able to impact policy because of this shift and investment in our communities. In 2020, here in Arizona, we have an opportunity to flip our House, to flip our Senate. We have an opportunity to win the US Senate seat and to defeat Donald Trump. We are flipping the page to the new Arizona, an Arizona where parents don't have to choose between spending time with their children or their second job to make ends meet, an Arizona where frontline workers' rights are respected, an Arizona that invests in our teachers and our students and not in cages or in criminalization of Black and brown people, an Arizona where small business can thrive over big corporations, an Arizona where access to the basic needs of food and quality of air and natural energy is not affected by the zip code you live in. We are the new Arizona. We are Arizona. And over the last 10 years, we have been on the ground, but we know we have not been alone. It's groups like People's Action that have supported us. It's movement people like you who helped us expose the injustices of Arizona. And it's People's Action and people like you who are gonna help us cement our wins, not only for progress, but to ensure that people's first agenda is a priority in Arizona. Sí se puede.
Se puede.
Thank you so much, Representative Teran, and thank you to everyone on the call with us tonight and all the movement leaders speaking to the moment we're in. As we all know, during this global pandemic, we're living in unprecedented times when many of us are worrying about not only our jobs, but our healthcare, the well-being of our family members, police violence, and so much more. For me, my parents are both public school teachers, and I am terrified that in a rush to increase profits, politicians who have no grounding in the lives of working class Americans will force teachers like my parents to go back to school in the fall and work in person. This terrifies me because it not only puts our students and our teachers at high risk during a deadly pandemic, but it puts our entire communities at risk. And for what? That's really the question, is for what? So that politicians out of touch with our communities can make profits at the cost of the health of people like my parents. I'm here fighting with People's Action for so many reasons, and one that I feel most urgently today is the need to elect politicians who will put people before profit and who are grounded in the lived realities of their constituents. That is exactly what this national organizing program is about for me, and I am so excited to be one of the regional field coordinators of this program and to be building it out with all of you. And I've been watching the chat, and it is so beautiful to me to see that so many of us have come into this space for the same reasons, because let me be clear, this fight belongs to each and every one of us. Now that we're clear on the future that we are fighting for, we need to talk about exactly how we are going to win that future. And the answer, simply enough, is you and me and all of us here on this call. We are the base of People's Action's first national organizing program, and we will transform the systems of power in this country through texting, calling, relational organizing, and deep canvassing. We are in a moment when organizing for systemic change is more urgent than ever, and the progressive champions fighting with us are under attack across the country. In Minnesota, Representative Ilhan Omar is in the midst of a tough re-election campaign as a centrist challenger has risen to prominence on a wave of corporate-funded campaign donations. Right over in Michigan, Representative Rashida Tlaib has a primary tomorrow and is once again being attacked by lobbyists who smear her identity as a Palestinian American woman. Challenges by corporate-funded candidates are happening across the country, up and down the ballot, and this is exactly why we must step up our organizing in this moment to not only protect our progressive electoral power, but expand it. So now we're going to break down exactly what our national organizing program looks like. Essentially, we will have two main teams, our text team and our call team, which are going to propel candidates across the country to victory in the next 90 days. Starting in September, we will be rolling out a third team, our movement politics leadership team, that will be made up of volunteers who will be trained to host and run their own events. Now I'm going to hand it over to our amazing organizer, Vishal, to introduce himself and tell us all a bit about the text team.
Thanks, Catherine. Catherine is one of our amazing movement politics field coordinators here at People's Action. My name is Vishal Reddy, and I'm very excited to be here with y'all and to lead the texting program here at People's Action. As a former educator and community organizer, I know change happens from the bottom on up. The People's Action team here is so grounded and so rooted in local communities, which is the type of organizing we need to deliver progressive structural change. To build progressive power, the texting program is going to focus on mobilizing folks to vote for candidates up and down the ballot in key battleground states across the nation. We've got amazing, ambitious goals. We're looking to text over 10 million voters in the next 90 days in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and more. And though these goals are ambitious, they are also necessary. This is what we need to do to win on November 3rd and wake up on November 4th, feeling victorious and energized to organize even more. And the best part is, we know we are building an organizing program and text team that not only brings wins on November 3rd, but we're building a text team that is positioned to continue pushing for our elected representatives to adopt progressive policies even after we win in November. So here's a little bit more about the texting team. Each week, we have our Texting Tuesday event at 5 Eastern. Last week, we had over 100 texters on the call, and we texted 150,000 voters in just 2 hours. And more importantly, we moved tens of thousands of voters to action. Also, we bring a DJ on the call every week so that we can vibe out while having powerful organizing conversations. At tomorrow's Texting Tuesday, we'll be text banking for Representative Ilhan Omar in Minnesota, mobilizing for progressive down-ballot candidates for Wisconsin's primary next week, and pushing voters in Pennsylvania to get their absentee ballots ASAP. And if you want to be a part of the texting team, but you can't make it out to Texting Tuesday, that's totally okay. You can send texts throughout the week. While we sent over 150,000 texts just during Texting Tuesday alone, we sent over 1 million texts as a team throughout the week. That's 1 million voters that we reached. And our Slack channel will make it really, really easy to plug in once you join. So if you're down to text millions of voters together, have a good time every Tuesday together, and push for structural change using our keyboard and our hearts, the texting team is the home for you. And on that note, I'm going to hand it over to our amazing organizer, Matthew, to talk about our powerful call team.
Thanks so much, Vishal. Yeah, my name is Matthew Rodriguez. I'll be leading the call team for the National Distributed Program for People's Action. And I'm currently out of Clint, Texas. Very proud to be from here. And for me, over the last 2 years, both my mom and my sister have been diagnosed with real rare forms of cancer. We've lived in and out of the hospitals, really seen the atrocities of our healthcare systems. So I understand that the policies and the politicians that we back and that we organize for mean life and death. I know that when we back someone and we work for someone, we give our time, it's not something to take lightly. And I want that to be a part of this call team, and that's what our work is going to reflect. And in just the first 2 days of our call team, we were able to make 35,000 calls into some extremely important primaries for Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, some of the strongest advocates for our policies for working people in this country. And this call team is just going to keep growing. This week, we'll be calling into another 2 really important battleground states, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And we have a goal of making 70,000 calls this week. So in these calls, we're going to be having deep issue-based canvassing conversations, which we know is the most effective way to bring people over to our side. And we know that this type of organizing, this type of communication is needed to end this administration, to elect candidates that represent us, and then to push for further change after that. And that's what we're going to do. And that's especially in a time of COVID where personal interaction and communication is so hard. This is something that we're really excited about. So our first advanced call team meeting, where we're going to talk about our leadership roles, learning new strategies of organizing methods, and just crafting the most effective call team possible, will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Time. And then of course, on Wednesday, we'll be calling into Wisconsin, a huge battleground state at the same time. And Thursday, we'll be calling into Pennsylvania. So we're really putting everything in to ending this atrocious administration and moving forward and making a world and a country for the people and by the people. So I would love for you all to join us. And I'm very excited to be on this team and to meet eventually all of you and work with all of you. So with that, I'll pass it back to Catherine and she'll give us some more about how to get plugged in.
Thank you, Matthew and Vishal. I am so pumped to be throwing down with this amazingly talented crew of staff and volunteers. For y'all's context, in the past 2 weeks, we have had super volunteers sign up from 13 years old to folks in their 70s. We have had folks from every corner of this country. We are truly building a multi-generational, multiracial movement. And so now that we have heard from each of our different movement leaders and we have heard about our different volunteer teams, I need each of you to take the first step to building this movement and join our Slack through the link in the chat. Slack is how volunteers communicate with each other and how I and other staff communicate with our teams about exciting events, news, and general updates. So while y'all are getting signed up for Slack, make sure to create a profile and add in a picture. I'd love for folks to post in the chat which race you are most excited to be voting in or organizing for over the next 90 days so we can hear where our energy is coming from. So while y'all get signed up for Slack, it is my absolute honor to introduce Reginald Brown, who is a community leader and board member with Vocal New York, and also a delegate and super volunteer with People's Action and our national organizing program. So take it away, Reginald.
Very good, very good. You know what? We are building this plane while we're flying it, so it's all good. It's all good. My name is Reginald Thomas Brown. Yeah, you like that, don't you? That stuck with me at my very first deep canvassing training back in March. My name is Reginald Thomas Brown. My pronouns are they, them, and their. I'm on the board of Vocal New York and the People's Action Delegate Assembly. I joined Vocal New York because I was evicted from my rent-stabilized apartment in 2011. I turned the pain of my housing insecurity into power. My leadership and personal story were responsible for passing the 30% rent cap bill. As of April 1st, 2014, 1,400 other HIV-positive clients will not experience my trauma. My first direct action was in 1971 when we sued the University of Kansas for denying us funding and space in the student-funded student union. Now remember, 1971 in Kansas. Kansas, folks, Kansas. I was 19 and the president of the Gay Liberation Front. I wrote op-eds in Newsweek and the student newspaper listing all the other student groups who got funding and space, pointing out that the only reason we were not funded was because we were queer. I embarrassed them and we got funding and space the next year. You see, I was tired of being bullied, so I stood up for what I believed to an institutional bully, and I won. You can't imagine how good that felt, to finally stand up and let my voice be heard and win. Wow, I'm so proud to be with Senator Sanders tonight. We appreciate Senator Sanders. We appreciate your activism with us. You launched our Rise Up candidate slate in 2017, and you know what? Many of those people on stage with you in DC won. You also participated in the People's Presidential Forums with us last year in New Hampshire, Nevada, and Iowa. This is why we are so excited to endorse you. You know what? You are the first national candidate that this organization has ever endorsed. You, Senator Sanders, are the first political leader that I contributed money and time to. I canvassed door to door for you in February in New Hampshire. the temperature was 7 degrees. Believe me, Senator, cold weather and I do not play well together. But I did this because of the message. In addition, I proudly text from the campaign. I realize that you left the campaign, but not the movement. Senator, you are a political leader whose values and dreams match mine. I have been volunteering in the People's Action text and phone banking, texting Tuesdays since March. I've been doing this for a minute. I'm enjoying it. Please join me and the other volunteers nationwide as we continue to text for the people's bailout, and the much other needed people and planet first issues. Senator Sanders, you are the political leader that realizes big change can only happen with our whole movement. This is why we're so excited for you to join us tonight. Thank you. Senator Sanders, take it away.
Well, Reginald, thank you very much for that beautiful introduction, and thank you for all of the great work you and many thousands of other people in People's Action are now doing. As Reginald just said, that's exactly what I believe. And that is the only way that real change ever takes place is from the bottom on up, from grassroots activism. It is from bringing working people together, whether they are Black or white or Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay, straight, whatever. Our job is to bring people together in the fight for justice. That's economic justice, social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. And as Reginald just said, and as I hope everybody knows, we are making real progress because of the work that People's Action and other grassroots organizations are doing. We have won in the last couple of months some great victories for the United States Congress. You're going to see some very strong progressives, new progressives coming to Congress. We're winning elections for district attorney, for state legislature, for city council. All over this country, you're seeing great people run for office and win on a progressive agenda. Now, right now, I don't have to tell Reginald or anybody else that we are living in an unprecedented moment in American history. There has never been a moment like this, certainly in our lifetimes, but perhaps in the whole history of this country. We're looking at a pandemic, which is the worst public health crisis since 1918 and the Spanish flu. We're looking at an economic meltdown, which has resulted in tens of millions of people losing their jobs, losing their health care, getting evicted from their apartments or their homes. And we are seeing literally in America today, millions of people facing hunger, not having enough food in the house to feed their kids. And on top of all of that, we have a president of the United States who, in my view, is the most dangerous president in the history of this country, the most dangerous. This is a president who is an authoritarian, who is trying to undermine American democracy, does not believe in the Constitution, does not believe in the rule of law. This is a president who is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, and a religious bigot. This is a president who literally, for his own political gain, is trying to divide us up rather than do what a president should do, bring us together. So in this unprecedented moment in American history, what do? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think, number one, in the next 3 months, we do everything that we possibly can at the grassroots level to defeat Donald Trump and elect Joe Biden. Do we agree with everything that Joe Biden stands for? No, we don't. I don't. But right now, the immediate task is not only to defeat Trump, but to defeat him badly. And then after we help elect Biden, the day after, we stand up and do everything we can to make sure that President Biden is the most progressive president since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And that means that we continue to fight for the agenda which is gaining more and more support among working people all over this country. It's an agenda that says that if you work 40 hours a week in America, you're not going to live in poverty, that we're not going to have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth for our children, that we are going to make it easier for workers to join unions so they can collectively bargain for decent wages and decent working conditions. It's an agenda that says we must have the best educational system in the world, from universal affordable childcare to graduate school, because we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free and cancel all student debt. It's an agenda that says we will join every other major country on earth in guaranteeing healthcare to all as a human right, not an employee benefit, through a Medicare for all single-payer system. And we're also going to join other major countries in having paid family and medical leave and paid vacations. We're way behind the rest of the industrialized world in that capacity. And we recognize, and we're going to work with Joe Biden to make sure that we effectively address the existential threat of climate change, that we pass a Green New Deal, and that we create many millions of good paying jobs as we do that. And we're going to do everything that we can to end systemic racism in this country, and police brutality, and police murders, and a very broken criminal justice system. And we're going to stand with the 11 million undocumented people in this country who today under Trump live in incredible fear. And we're going to work with them to pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And we're going to do everything that we can to have common sense gun safety legislation. And we're going to work to protect a woman's right to control her own body. So short term, in the next 3 months, we have got to do everything we can to defeat Trump, to elect Biden, and to elect as many progressive candidates as we can all across this country. And then the day after that election, we build our grassroots movement to finally create a government and an economy that works for all of us and not just the billionaire class. So let me thank People's Action again for the great work you're doing, for the support you gave me in my campaign and the support you've given other strong progressives around America. Let us go forward together. Let us have the courage to take on powerful special interests. Let us transform this country. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Sanders. It is always such a privilege to have you join us at People's Action as someone who understands that elections are not only about voting, but also organizing a movement of organizers who are taking responsibility for building the community power we need to win long term. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Brooke Adams. I am the Movement Governing Director at People's Action. I also most recently led the field program and the state programs for Bernie in the 2020 presidential race in Iowa, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. So now the fun part of our program, we're going to talk about how you all can get involved. So pop in the chat right now if you are ready to do the work and roll up your sleeves and talk to voters day by day to make sure we defeat Donald Trump and elect movement candidates up and down the ballot who support things like Medicare for all, a homes guarantee, Green New Deal, free college. Pop in the chat if you are hungry to not only vote for candidates who support these issues, but really build the people power step by step in your communities to seed this movement long term. Well, that is exactly what we are going to walk through right now. And thank you to all of the speakers before for giving us a great overview of what People's Action is doing. So one of the things that I value most about People's Action is that it is a network that not only teaches you how to phone bank here and there, but really how to organize and how to become a leader in this movement. I'm someone who, did not grow up political and really learned to organize because I got introduced to the People's Action Network and how we all have a personal stake, right? And are all directly impacted by the structural oppressions in this country and can do the work to organize our communities to build power for the long term. And we know that the fact that we're in an environment where someone like Donald Trump can be elected president shows just how deeply we need transformational change in this country. We need a multiracial, multi-generational, multi-ethnic, multi-gendered movement that will hold a president accountable. And ultimately, we hear a lot about transformational politics as opposed to transactional politics. What that means is that we need to build a movement who can really hold all of our elected officials accountable, that can hold a city council accountable, that allocates the police budget when 1 in 5 children go hungry every single day. A movement that can hold a district attorney accountable who thinks criminalization of Black and brown bodies is how to make our people safe. A movement that can hold governors accountable who intentionally allow their own citizens to be poisoned through contaminated water. We need a movement that will hold accountable an entire system of government that allows such heinous atrocities to be committed against our own people, right? We need a movement that demands the kind of society, the kind of systems that we know we deserve, right? A movement that can allow us to thrive and not just survive. So we at People's Action have endorsed a slate of movement candidates across the country who are leaders in that movement, from Andrew Volinsky for governor in New Hampshire with Rights and Democracy and New Hampshire Youth Movement, to Nithya for Los Angeles City Council and Ground Game LA. The list goes on. You can always check out our website, peoplesaction.org, for all of our endorsed candidates. And we need to make sure that we are doing the work this cycle to elect those movement candidates and defeat Donald Trump. So my question for all of you is, are you ready to fight for that movement? Are you ready to fight for all of our undocumented comrades? Are you ready to fight for our Black, Indigenous, and POC comrades? Are you ready to fight for our LGBTQ and non-binary comrades? Are you ready to fight for an America that represents all of us? And if your answer to those questions is yes, then you are ready to join us here at People's Action. With less than 100 days, I believe we're now down to 92 until the election, and critical races that are happening all across the country for building our movement step by step. We need every single one of you to join us in order to win the future that we deserve. So what we are asking everyone on this call to do tonight is to sign up for at least 4 shifts. We've got phone banking and text banking happening this week and every week. So there's a link that is getting posted in the chat. It is ppls.ac/join us, peoples.ac/join us, that has all of the opportunities to get involved in our organizing. And we need everyone here to sign up for at least 4 shifts tonight. Now, it might be easy to say, I'll sign up in a couple of weeks when we're closer to the election, or I'll do this online when I'm at home later. But we really need everyone to make the commitment to sign up and organize right now, because ultimately, end of the day, 92 days is nothing, right, until the election. And we need to make sure that we're building that foundation now. So again, the link is ppls.ac/join us to sign up for our upcoming events. And we've got a few things on there. We're doing phone banks and text banks every single week, which Catherine and Vishal and Matthew ran through earlier. This week, we're gonna be making phone calls into Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota. Got primaries coming up as early as next Tuesday, and we're gonna be texting and calling into those states. And we are also gonna be texting and calling into Pennsylvania this week, a state that Donald Trump won by less than 1% in 2016. And a state where the Republican Party made sure to send vote by mail ballot reminders to every single registered Republican. So we've got to make sure that we're doing the work as well to contact our people to make sure they're getting their vote by mail ballots, and lay that foundation early so we can beat Donald Trump in that state where he won by less than 1% in 2016. So that's a quick overview of some of the states that we're going to be calling into this week. That link again, ppls.ac/join-us. Has all of the opportunities to sign up, and there are also opportunities to get involved in our text banking and phone banking at later dates. And I want to just, say a word about why signing up with People's Action. Lots of opportunities to phone bank, to text bank. One of the things that's really unique with us is that we have a tried and tested, innovative methodology for how we contact voters in a way that's about their personal stories, about what's at stake for all of us, and really talking to people one-on-one to dig in with them as one of the key ways that we persuade voters to vote against Donald Trump and support our movement candidates up and down the ballot. So we are really excited to be training folks across the country on how to use this methodology to talk to voters, to really dig in with people one-on-one with our deep canvas, and looking forward to having all of you join the fight. We're only 92 days away, and now's our opportunity to not only win big November 3rd, but also seed the foundation to build this movement long-term. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Rosemary to close us out.
Thank you so much, Brooke. That was awesome. I am really hoping to see so many people join us. At the same time, I want to take a moment and Lizeth Chacon, who is our leader, is a fearless leader from People's Action and our board president, wanted me to kind of finish sharing with you something that she thought was incredibly important. She wanted you all to know about the reasons of why and a little bit of the history. So white supremacy and an extractive profit before pulled a people economy that got built in this country since colonization. After the critical and important union drives from the 30s to the 70s and the increased power and victories of the civil rights, women's and anti-war movements of the 60s and 70s, the reigning white corporate elite in this country got scared and decided to act. A corporate lawyer, months before he was nominated to the Supreme Court, wrote the Powell Memo, the dreaded Powell Memo, that laid out the threat that the elite were facing and demanded them to act together to change the narrative in this country and to shift our economy to work for them, the rich, and to build a powerful new political infrastructure. The right has successfully executed this plan for the last 40 years, and we've lived through the last generation of expanding wars, declining working power, a huge wealth gap that has given the 1% incomparable luxury, while the rest of us in the multiracial working class fight for scraps and of course, the vice of racism. That was from our fearless leader, Lizeth Chacon. I also wanted to close us out. I want to say it's really important for you all to get involved. We're living in a brave new world. We don't know what's going to happen. We are feeling isolated as humans. We're feeling isolated as a country that is being led by hate and who is trying to swing the pendulum of change a lot to a place of completely for the elite. Now, make no mistake about it, we are experiencing what I believe is white supremacist backlash, a fear of those in power who just don't want to give up power for the rest of us. It is vile, it is full of hate. Bernie said it very well. Trump is racist, misogynistic, etc. He's calling it out. We should all have the courage to call that out. It attempts to silo us, but we're going to beat back that hate. We're going to beat back that hate by rising up and making calls and texting people and not being isolated, but even in these platforms, being in community together. We're going to rise up and we are going to defeat, and what was it Brooke said? 92 days. Because our democracy, our very democracy is at stake. So I challenge you all, in your homes, talk to people, call them up, have them join, have them text. We can have this moment. We have really got to rise up against this hate, beat it back with all the love in our hearts for our fellow kind. I thank you so much for joining us. People's Action is a real home. We welcome you with open arms, and we hope to see you in the streets. Solidarity forever. Thank you so much. Have a great night.